All right, cool. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I am Kelly Robinson. I'm one of the assistant directors in the Center for Career Development. I also help to co-coordinate the Davidson Impact Fellowship program, which is why you are seeing my face here today. So, first things first, a couple of housekeeping items. If you did not have a chance to pre-register for this program, please go ahead and put your email address in the chat so that I can make sure that I capture your information so that we have you on file as having attended today. And if I need to get any follow-up information to you, I can go ahead and I can do that. As I said, I'm glad you guys made it through the first week. Just kind of want to put out there, I know that it's tough. We've got cases on campus and I know that it's under some stressful situations. I'm thinking about you guys. I know it's a stressful time. Please be sure to be taking care of yourselves. If there's, you're feeling the need, to reach out to somebody for assistance, please do so. And if, you see somebody, friends or classmates who you feel are in need of some kind of assistance, please reach out on their behalf. Let's all take care of ourselves during this time. So, but let's switch over. We're going to be talking about an amazing postgraduate fellowship opportunity. Let's think forward, right? Yay, you guys are graduating. So let's think about some opportunities. I'd like to introduce to you who's on the call with us today, Dr. Rebecca Pence, who serves as the professor of research ethics at the Emory Winship Cancer Institute. And Dr. Pence is going to be talking to us today about the mission of the Emory Winship Cancer Institute, as well as what the Davidson Impact Fellows role is in helping her and the team to achieve that mission. Another housekeeping item, we will save time for Q&A at the end. As you think of questions that you'd like to ask or have be asked, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll be sure to get to them, or certainly when we get to that Q&A part, you can ask them there as well, okay? Becky, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Great, thanks Kelly, appreciate it. Glad to see you all, if only by Zoom. It's the first time we've done the Davidson interviews by Zoom, obviously, but we're getting used to it. I'm glad you made it through your first week of school. It sounds like it's a little tough there, and I certainly understand it. I haven't been to my real office since March, so we're all doing it the same way. And actually this year's Davidson Fellows worked remotely, though next year we're going to be able to be back on campus, we're promised, by September 1. So we're, we still may be doing Zoom meetings, but at least we won't be, doing everything by text, which is the way we're doing it right now. But I wanted to share a slideshow with you that really gives you a background about our program. Because we've been doing this now for over 10 years and we've got a lot of experience, and I think we're really able to offer those of you who are thinking about going into a healthcare profession a great experience for a year. And frankly, it looks really good on your resume, and we're very successful in getting you into your postgraduate education. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and do a little slideshow for you. Now, do ask questions in the chat if you have any questions during this, or just interrupt me. I've got it in such a way that I can't see your faces, but I can certainly, we can respond to chat. Okay, so Winship Cancer Institute Ethics Fellowship, and it's an impact fellowship. So it's open to recent graduates seeking a year's experience before they go off to some kind of health profession. We do, and I'll be frank, give preference to those entering medical school because I think we're best suited for that. Though we did do a fellowship with someone who went on to be a physician's assistant, and that worked fine as well. We do a lot of empirical ethics research. I'm going to give you some examples. You were really embedded in academic medicine, and we will have a first author publication by the end of the fellowship. And you do have to choose a project that is yours, that you are in charge of. I delegate to the fellows, working with Davidson Fellows. It's been very successful. I'm a very close mentor when you reach out to me, but I also expect a lot of independent ability to do independent work, which no Davidson student has problem with. So what's my background? So my PhD is in philosophy. My dissertation was actually St. Thomas Aquinas's view of God's omnipotence, which is not really that good preparation for doing medical ethics. But then when my family, my husband and the kids moved to Yakima, Washington, there was no place to teach graduate philosophy. Yakima, when they were deciding in the state of Washington where the colleges would go, where the prison would go, and where the state fair would go, Yakima chose the state fair. So thinking that I had done a lot of work in ethics, I went to the local hospital and they actually hired me. So I became a clinical ethicist, learned how to do it on the job. And then after doing that for a number of years, we moved to Houston, and I was put in charge of and developed the clinical ethics program at MD Anderson Cancer Center. And then when we came to Emory, I now have switched over to research ethics. So what's the difference between clinical ethics and research ethics? So the clinical ethicist is at the bedside with the doctors and nurses. I rounded in the ICU. You're there doing clinical care. But the research ethicist has also a very important job, though there aren't as many of us, is to make sure that human subjects really understand what they're getting into when they're getting into research, and that it aligns with their values. And also to answer any physician, nurse, investigators questions. So we do a lot of empirical research ethics in order to find out what the problems are and to fix them. Let's look at some of the projects. You get an idea of what you'll be doing if you join us. So, as you probably know, African Americans are underrepresented in clinical trials in the country, but interestingly, not at Winship. I'll give you some stats. In myeloma, the disease cancer myeloma, African Americans comprise 33% of trial participants at Winship. Nationally, they're 6%. So, what's going on? We hope to find out what's going by interviewing all myeloma patients who are on a clinical trial to see if any of the barriers that usually face African Americans, like mistrust, discomfort, cost, transportation, or sort of a belief that God's in control and I shouldn't do anything about it, and find out what's different about Winship in our patients. And then we hope to share that with nationally so they can see what works to bring African Americans onto clinical trials so that we can improve that figure. Another thing we're doing is immunotherapy. You may have heard of immunotherapy. It's a new therapy. It's very exciting. What we do is we get the immune system to actually attack the cancer. It's fabulous. It actually really saved Jimmy Carter's life, and a lot of people are excited about it. But so one of the things we did is we interviewed physicians and then sat in, and this is the kind of thing we're able to do when we're back on campus, sat in on the conversations about immunotherapy, and then interviewed the patients after the conversations. And what we found out is the physicians said that the patients are overestimating benefit, and the patients weren't able to define just simple word immunotherapy less than half the time, even though the physicians defined it. So what we decided to do is, since it's misunderstood, is we developed some really short videos to help patients understand that better. And we want to test those videos. We haven't done this yet. We've tested other kinds of videos, but not these. And what we do when we test them, we go into the clinic for somebody who has immunotherapy. We ask them what this means. Then we show the video. Then we ask them what it means again. And then we hope that the video improves understanding. This kind of video has improved understanding in our other studies, but we haven't tried immunotherapy yet. So I'll just show you one of the videos because we have lots of these.
To remain healthy, our body must be able to defend itself against outside threats, like infection with viruses or bacteria, and problems that arise inside the body, like cancer. Some of the defenses are easily seen. Our skin, the wax in our ears, and the acid in our stomachs are all ways that invaders are blocked before they can get into our bodies. In addition to these blocks to infection, everyone has an army of cells inside them that works to find and destroy any invaders that make it past the outside lines of defense. Some of these cells are also able to find and kill cancer cells. All of the things that work together to fight infection and cancer form what is known as the immune system. All of the cells of our immune system are formed
Okay, let's stop.
To remain healthy, our
Don't need
body
to do
must
this
be able
twice.
to defend itself against outside threats,
Here we
like
go.
infection with viruses or bacteria.
Perfect. Okay, so that's the immunotherapy project. There's another one that's been ongoing that we're working on, and that is working with siblings of children who are going through transplant. Ethicists were always concerned that the donors, you know, when you go through a hematopoietic stem cell transplant, if you have cancer and you're a kid, what you do is you get some donor cells and then they're injected. And then what that does is we hope that those donor cells take over. And then the cancer is gone and they have new cells instead of the ones they had that were causing cancer. But they often use a brother or sister as a donor. And ethicists were concerned as, oh, these donors are being used for the brother and sister. But we did a study and found out it's not the donor siblings who are suffering, but it's the siblings who aren't donors, because they're kind of the ones who are completely left out of the picture. So we interviewed 140 family members and we found out that those who were out of the loop were the ones who were most distressed. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in a trailer in South Georgia talking to this young boy. He was supposed to be being taken care of his aunt, but I never saw the aunt. And he was so sweet. And we went through the whole conversation. And then at the end, he said, well, now can I ask you a question? I said, well, of course. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I won't be able to answer any medical questions. And then he said, will my mom and brother ever come home from the hospital? The kids at school say that if you have cancer, you never come home. And I was just heartsick because nobody had given him any information. And I assured him his mom would come home and that we were really working hard to get his brother home. So sometimes, this is not unusual. So this is a story of another story. We had A and J were twins, and A had non-Hodgkin's when he was 4. Now A is cured and married with his own child, and J is on probation. Let me show you this story. This is the mom.
I was always trying to be real sterile.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't let Jeff get close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
So where was Jeff when you were doing all these procedures to Andy?
He was standing at the door of the room watching.
Yeah.
He'd lean kind of up against the door and just watch, you know, and Andy's laying on the bed, and I'm giving him shots and working on something. It must have been a really frightening thing to see.
Mm-hmm. But in retrospect, it probably wouldn't have been possible to involve him in sterile procedures.
Well, I think that there was a way, now that I think about it, when I say I probably should have involved Jeff more, there's probably a way that I could have cleaned Jeff and cleaned his hands and cleaned him up, just like I cleaned myself up, and have him come and be near or by Andy, and tell him about what I was doing, maybe
Right.
explain to him what I was doing and why I was doing it, and maybe it would have helped us all. I don't know.
Right. Then you also told me that Andy was showered with gifts and...
Our basement was pretty much solid gifts for Andy.
Mm-hmm.
And there was never anything for Jeff. And even almost to this day, people say, how's Andy doing? And people that I haven't seen for a while,
Right.
they'll say, how's Andy doing? I mean, that's how it was all along. Everybody always, how's Andy? When we went out to Harson's, I remember whatever Andy wanted to do was whatever boat Andy wanted to take and whatever activity he wanted to do. Nobody said anything about Jeff.
So what are we going to do about this kind of situation where these experts, these siblings are feeling isolated and abandoned? So what we've done is we have a child life specialist who's actually interacting with the at-home siblings to provide them information about the patient and help them get strategies to see. And child life specialists have never worked virtually. And we started this a couple of years ago. And so far it's been very successful. We've been working with younger siblings, and now we're trying to recruit teenage siblings. And how does this involve the fellow? We interview the siblings and the parents before the transplant and at 100 days. I do some of these interviews, and sometimes the fellows do them as well. And it's just touching to work with these families during this difficult time. Last of all, we're trying to make sure that we don't have disparities in our clinical trials. And even though we're very good with African Americans, we're not that good with rural population or with the Latinx. So for rural, we're tracking referrals to see if we're getting patients from rural places, and we hope to do educational programs for the Latinx population in Spanish. So the ethics fellow is an integral part of the team. You help with all aspects of every project we do, including authorship on all our publications that we're doing when you're involved. This involves doing, like I just got another call. They want me to speak at Children's of Atlanta on informed consent in pediatrics. Well, what I will ask the fellows to do is help me come up with a great bibliography of what the current issues are in that field. I know a lot about it, but I don't know what's been published in the last year or the last 2 years. So you do end up doing some lit reviews and helping me with our presentations. Other things, there's a clinical research course for oncology fellows that you attend. Now you might think that that's a little weird that you're sitting here with full-blown doctors who are already fellows. Let me assure you, you will know as much about clinical research as they do. So you do just fine in this course. Now that we're going to not be remote, you can shadow the oncologist in clinic and get to know them. We go to some of the regulatory and team meetings just to get a feel for it. The Emory Ethics Center is very active and they have lots of programs. If you're interested in those, we have access to those. And hopefully, we've been told anyway, that we can be in person by September 1, which means we will be remote for just the first month. We pay $30,000 a year plus benefits. And what's the advantage? Why Winship? We really are one of the few cancer centers with research ethics very much involved. I have never been so intimately involved in every aspect of clinical research as I am at Winship. They're very open to ethics. They rely on us, they incorporate us, they look forward to working with the fellows. And we want to get you into medical school because that makes my program look good and it also is good for you. So we are very busy trying to help you with that process. So application process, working through Kelly, I need a resume and a cover letter, and then I interview every applicant. And then the top candidates are interviewed by the ethics team, Margie Dixon, who actually runs the ethics program. And then this year, the 2 ethics fellows are Claire Seibold and Shannon Blee. Do reach out to them if you have questions about what it's like to work with me and Margie. I'm sure they'll let you know. This year, a little different from before, we're going to have 1 fellow from Davidson and 1 from Spelman College. And now I would love to do questions and discussion.
Lydia, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Hi, thanks for speaking with us. I am just now finishing up the statement of intent that we're asked to submit.
Yes.
Who should we address those to? Should we address them to you? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, address them to me. And we just want to know why you would be interested in the Winship program, how it aligns with your goals, you know. That'd be great. Yes.
Hey, Dr. So does that mean that you want a cover letter as well as the statement of purpose?
No, statement of purpose is the cover letter.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you want to call it. We need 1 letter and resume. That's all.
Any tips or things that you would like particularly to see be highlighted in this cover letter?
Yes. What your goals are for post-fellowship. Because we're really geared to helping you reach your goals for post-fellowship. So we would like to be able to make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Rebecca, we had a question in the chat wanting to know, is the program open to non-citizens?
Now, ethically, I hope so, but I would have to check.
Okay.
Because we're, you know, a comprehensive cancer center with certain rules. But if someone is interested who's a non-citizen, I will certainly go to bat for that. Can I guarantee that that will happen? No. But I would certainly see what I could do.
Thank you.
You would just alert me to that in the cover letter so that I can get working on it right now.
Okay.
Because even these days with COVID and all, some of these processes aren't as quick as they used to be.
Anderson, I think you were raising your hand.
Hey, I was just curious, like what level of patient interaction there usually is in this program?
So usually a lot. If we're able to not go remote, which I'm hoping for, and even this year, interestingly, Claire did a project where she interviewed patients by Zoom about their experience on first-in-human trials. Because first-in-human trials are a little ethically different because, great, it works in mice and in petri dishes, but how does it work in a human? So we were able to do it, but usually what you do is you hang out in the clinic waiting for the patient. Like, let's say you're fighting the African American Project with myeloma patients. You hang out in the myeloma clinic. Whenever there's one who consents for a trial, you pop in and say, "Hi, I'm the ethics fellow. Would love to have 20 minutes of your time. I know you're going to be sitting here waiting for the doctor. Can we have this interview now? Or if that's not convenient, can I come to your next clinic visit? I'd really like to talk to you about what, about this." And then you go through your questionnaire. So a lot of interaction with patients. You are the front line. The way we get our studies done is you are the front line, hanging in the clinic. You get to know the nurses. You get to know the research coordinators. You're hanging with the doctors. They're very open to that. They're very used to it, and they kind of expect an ethics fellow to be sitting in their clinic doing stuff. This year's been a little weird, but they've still been really open to it. Arranging Zooms for us with patients, which is pretty remarkable.
And I would even offer, Becky, to even be thinking about, like, as we're in this transition between like going back in person and then even virtual, like Anderson, when you were asking about like, patient interaction, like this is also going to be a great time. Like, this is a new way of interacting. And so how do you develop that rapport with patients and with people is a skill that you will need to be developing, perhaps even virtually, because this isn't going to be going away totally once the pandemic is done. So.
No, I think a lot of our meetings will still be virtual. My hunch is. I mean, nobody knows for sure, but it turns out people like virtual meetings because they don't have to go anywhere and they can just pop in 3 seconds before but obviously clinic taking care of patients is very, hands-on, and we hope to have you parked in the clinics. That's our goal.
Thank you.
Who has other questions? Go ahead, Attila.
So this research, these projects, are they mainly focused in Atlanta, or is there traveling across the country as well over the year?
Never traveling across the country, but the fellows 2 years ago, Gavin and Eli Abernathy and Gavin Campbell did a rural project, which means we wanted to go down and talk to the rural patients. We actually went down to see if they understood our chemotherapy videos. So they sat in the rural clinics and we paid for their overnight hotel. They drove down, and then they sat in the rural clinics and showed them the chemotherapy videos, not the immunotherapy videos, the chemotherapy videos. And they just sat in rural clinics. And actually the fellows the year before also did that because it took us 2 years. Mary Catherine. And so the only travel then would be in Georgia. If COVID is gone, we will interview the children, the siblings and parents in their homes. I usually do that because I don't want to send a fellow to some strange home in South Georgia. But sometimes I can't, right? And I've already met the family and I know it's safe, and a fellow then will go. I mean, I did one interview in a Dunkin' Donuts shop and they were late and I sat there for 2 hours. And have you ever sat in a Dunkin' Donuts shop for 2 hours? Don't. The clientele and what they buy is just enough to drive you crazy. They come out, oh, never mind, I won't go there. So yeah, there's a little bit of travel, but mostly it's just at Winship. Well, the other thing is if we do a Grady project, it's down the street, it's just, it's 10 minutes away, but it's a whole different population. It's an underserved inner city population, right? So we do projects at Grady too. Yes, Alex.
Hi, I just had a question about how large the research ethics team is. I know it consists of you and then 2 fellows. Are there other people involved? I'm just a little curious.
Yeah, so it's me, it's Margie Dixon, and Margie Dixon is kind of the rock of the program. She's the research coordinator, but she just coordinates everything for us. And then the 2 fellows. And that's the extent of the ethics program. We run the whole ethics program. Now, we have colleagues who are also, we have lots of colleagues who are ethicists. And there are 2 kinds of ethicists on Emory's campus. There are conceptual ethicists, which mean they sit in their offices and think deep thoughts and solve problems in their minds, right? And then there are people like what I'm doing now, which is research ethics, which is out there talking to patients and working with them. So we've got a lot of conceptual ethicists, but we also have a research ethicist besides myself named Neil Dickert. He's a cardiologist ethicist, and we work with his program too. And actually he hired one of the fellows who needed to take 2 gap years instead of 1, and they're working with him now. So he's a partner, and we do journal clubs with him. We know his staff as well. So even though we're a 4-person cancer ethics program, there's a cardiology program, and then there's the ethics center, which is huge, but it's the more conceptual group.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Would you be able to give some more examples of the empirical ethics studies that previous fellows like us have done?
Sure, right. Yeah, so those are the ones we're doing now. So one of them was the rural one where they actually went into rurals and tested the chemotherapy videos. They came in and said, and actually one set of fellows did this at Grady at the underserved hospital. And at Grady, they would go in and say, do you understand what the word cancer is? And they'd say, yeah, and they'd say something, but it wasn't right. Then they'd show the video and then ask them again. So we do a lot testing these videos and making these videos. Like I said, Claire right now is working on first in human because that's of ethical concern. And she's interviewing patients if they really understand first in human and how best to make an informed consent. Shannon is working on a window of opportunity trial study. So what's that? Sometimes we do cancer drugs before surgery in the window. And the risk is it might postpone the surgery. But do the patients understand that? So she's interviewing people who are on a window of opportunity trial. So she's doing that trial. Another one she's doing is called preventive misconception. Now, what's that? There's a whole, I don't know, have you guys ever heard of the word therapeutic misconception? Probably not. It just means you think research is clinical care. You don't get it. You think that the whole purpose of research is to help you, not to, and so it's all for you, which of course it isn't. It's to produce generalizable knowledge. Preventive misconception is when you go on a prevention trial. So you're going on and getting some kind of drug because you're high risk for cancer to prevent cancer. And there's evidence out there that people don't understand that it's a research trial and we don't know if it'll prevent cancer. And then they start to change their lifestyle thinking that they've now prevented cancer. And that's called preventive misconception. And they're doing a trial right now, interviewing those patients to make sure that they understand it's not proven. You can't change your lifestyle, right? And we just interview them to make sure whether they understand that. And then if they don't, we'll come up with an intervention to test to help them better understand that. So those are just a few of the ones that the current fellows have done that are doing right now. And those will get finished while they're there, and those will be their first author papers. We do a lot of going, another one, I talked about the immunotherapy one, and which we're now doing the videos for, but you just sat in the clinic and listened to the whole conversation and wrote down every technical term that the doctor used. And then afterwards, we asked the patient, did you understand IPI? It's a technical term. They say, no, right? Who understands IPI? It turns out to be an immunotherapy drug that the doctors use like it was common language, right? And so then we found out all the terms they don't understand, and now we're making videos to help them understand the terms. But first we had to find out which terms they don't understand, right? So they sat in on everything and wrote down the technical terms, then asked the patient afterward. So the doctor used all these terms. We just want to see which ones make sense. What did you think he meant by ippy? Right? Well, of course, nobody got it, right? But so those are the kinds of things. It's a lot of interviewing patients, interviewing doctors about glitches in clinical trials that we might be able to fix. Yeah, Cameron.
Just sort of on that note, are most of the research projects about a year long? Like, will we be able to see it through to fruition?
With luck, yes. We try to give you a project you can finish in a year. It's research. Sometimes it doesn't happen. And then what happens, Cameron, is because I am dedicated to getting you a first author paper, things come up during the year that people ask us to write things, and then I can finagle you to be the first author. If it looks like your project, like the window trial, this is the second year of the window trial, and we may not even finish it now. There just aren't that many patients on window trials. So like what happened last year, a journal wrote me and said, can you respond to this thing about why doctors don't share prognoses? So the fellows wrote a paper on why doctors don't tell people their prognosis and got a first author publication, right? And we get those kind of things all the time. We're working on right now, we just got asked to write a paper on disparities in prostate cancer. Now, we work with the prostate physician, so he'll get first authorship, but the fellows will be second and third, right? And we learned more than we ever could have known about disparities in prostate cancer. The two fellows are now experts in disparities in prostate cancer. So those are the things that pop in that happen, and you just never know what it's going to be. And the year before, we were asked to do something on measles. So we became experts on measles. Who knew? It's kind of fun, but it's you can't really predict what's going to happen every year. Well, great. Another question?
Anyone else have any questions for Dr. Pence? No? Okay. Becky, did you have anything that you wanted to follow up with? Anything
No, I'm just really excited to see all your faces. I'm looking forward to getting the cover letters or statement of intent and the resumes. And I interview everybody that sends one in. We don't cut people out so that I can really get to know you a little bit better. And this year, instead of sitting in someone of, Davidson's nice places, I'll be doing it this way, but I think it'll still work. And we're looking forward to that. And then I pick the top candidates and they go to Margie. She does the next interview. And then the two fellows. And if you have questions about it, do talk to Claire and Shannon. They'd be glad to talk to you. That often happens, because if they can, they can be real frank about what works and what doesn't work. Of course, their experience is a little different. If you know Eli or Gavin, they had an in-person fellowship, Eli Abernathy, Gavin Campbell. And I'm still working with both of them because both of them had to do 2 gap years because of some, just whatever. And I got them each a job. So I'm now working with them in their new jobs, just as sort of their backup mentor.
That's great. That's awesome to hear. So, okay. So just as a reminder, the fellowship position is posted right now in Handshake. So if you search for Emory Winship, the fellowship position, that deadline right now for that application is set for next Wednesday, February 3rd at 11:59 p.m. So we give you guys until like literally the 11th hour, because I know you guys and I see all those submissions at 11:45. So, then, as Dr. Pence was saying, we'll be coordinating interviews. We've got interview dates like the following day. So just be looking for that information. You know, we've had a few people, Dr. Pence, I appreciate you clarifying about the statement of purpose. You know,
Yeah.
I've had some questions about that. As I like to call it, I call it a cover letter with a twist. The cover letter is where you are explaining like what your qualifications and skills are for this position. The twist is that, you know, the organizations as part of the fellowship program want to know, how does this particular opportunity fit in with your career goals? Because it's a statement of purpose. They want to see what your purpose is in pursuing this particular opportunity. So in my follow-up email to you guys, I'll be sending this particular recording of this session so you can take a look at it again, as well as I'll send you the link for the job posting. If you've got any questions, you can certainly reach out to me. Feel free to send me an email. There is only one of me, and it seems like right now 537 of you. So be patient with me if I don't get back to you by the end of the day, but I will respond. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we close things out for the Friday afternoon? No? Okay.
Thanks, guys. It's been really good.
Thank you guys, take care, and everybody have a great weekend, all right?
Weekend.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pence. Bye, Becky.
Bye-bye.